What is up, Super Fam and Bro Vengers alike? I am Sensei Finito, aka Vane Sensei, and welcome to Marvel Bros, where we discuss all things Marvel and everything pop culture. And today we are going to be doing our review and discussion for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The 3-episode series premiere just aired last week on Tuesday, and tomorrow we will be continuing with the next parts of the story. So I'm excited to check it out. Well, not check it out. We've already checked it out, but I'm excited to talk about it, go review some stuff, and also check out new Rockstars official breakdown or Easter egg hunt or whatever you want to call it of those first 3 episodes. So if you guys are excited, if you guys are happy, make sure you guys drop a like on the stream. If you guys enjoyed your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man series premiere, definitely drop a 1 in the chat. Don't forget to drop all of your thoughts, theories, and questions for the series premiere of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the comment section down below. We will be, talking about it. We'll be going through it. We'll be nerding out about all the things and implications that come with what we saw today. I'm excited for it, and I know you guys will be too. I definitely wanted to start this stream off a little earlier today, but I didn't get a chance to. So we won't be here too long, but we will be here. We won't be here for a long time, but we'll be here for a good time. You feel me? So I hope everybody is ready to vibe out with your boy and just, chit chat a little bit about this show. Tell me the goods, tell me the bads, tell me the uglies, and the vibe that you had with it overall. Let me make sure that my sound is good and everything is going smoothly over here. Everything should be going smooth. Yeah, I think we sounded all good over here, chat. Yeah. We moving. Yo, I really enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. I thought the premiere did all the things that I was looking for it to do. Like I say, usually the main things that I look for whenever we have a season premiere, series premiere, is for the table to be set for what the rest of the series potential could be. And I think that we did a really good job of that within this show. I mean, we got his origin story out of the way in a quick, fast hurry. We got all the information that we needed in those first 3 episodes. I think to continue to keep us going until we get to this next batch and the next batch and the next batch. I also think that the release schedule with this is probably going to benefit it quite a bit. With it being like a 3 episode, 2 episodes last week, 3 episodes this week, 3 episodes next week, and then another 2 episodes the week after that, giving us like a month of content. And not, it's just, I think that's a really smart idea to do it in, especially because now we get to kind of get these full episodes, but we also get to get a little bit more time with it so we can nerd out as well. So we're kind of getting the best of both worlds with this release schedule because we still get to talk week by week, but we also don't have to wait for every single one of these episodes because sometimes having just a short just watching just 1 episode, sometimes it can definitely be like, ah, man, I wish we got more. So getting to get these chunks at a time, it's gonna really fit. And I think that it was really smart for them to do that. The only thing that I've known to do that before this that I can think of is like Arcane or Stranger Things. But as far as animated goes, Arcane for sure, because they usually have that 3 act structure. And I think that there's a similar 3 act structure. Well, 4 act structure, which I don't really know what that could mean, but I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it. Again, more than I thought I would be. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought I would enjoy the show because I mean Spider-Man, like, well, like obviously, but it's actually been really good. They've put some good story. There's actually some good story depth into it as well. There's just certain things that they've been able to accomplish within this story that I think really benefits it overall. Like the POV switch for instance, that POV switch that we get as we're walking with Peter, or we're talking with Peter, and then Peter is standing there, and then Lonnie comes up, and then he's like, "All right, Pete, have a good one," and then he like just sighs, and as he sighs, the POV switches to his point of view, and then we continue that scene with him walking home, and we get to see how he is, and just how life is for him. And I thought that that was absolutely amazing. So, I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I really did not know what to expect going into this episode or going into these episodes, but being pleasantly surprised, I believe, is an understatement for sure. Definitely a really good they did a really good job. I just think that this show, they've done a good job in weaving everything together. Most of the stuff that we saw from the trailer, I believe, is in the first episode, well, at least in this first arc. So that's a really good, I think that's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing so far. And I think we're just gonna continue to get this good thing going on and be able to really vibe out with it. Really, like, everything's been pretty solid so far. The villains, the friendly neighborhood vibe as well has been immaculate. It's something I was really looking for with the show, is trying to see if they were going to give us those friendly neighborhood vibes, and 100% we got your friendly, like, we got those vibes very quick, to be honest with you. Like, they did a really, really good job. I think they did a really good job of just giving us all of the things that Spider-Man is, in one way or another. You know what I mean? Like, they allowed us to experience Spider-Man's origin story. They allowed us to kind of get to know him a little bit. And they're also able to kind of teeter on the what's it called, the canon effect of things, right? Like how canon works. Some of those things that it's really cool to see the way that they have blended some of the concepts that were introduced in the Spider-Verse movie in here, right? Like, I think that they've done a really good job of giving us like the MCU take on the Spider-Verse metaphysics, for lack of better words, right? Because they really set up, every universe has set up their own particular metaphysics in one way, shape, or form. So I think it's been really fun to be able to experience it from this universe that's actually blending in two different sides of world buildings and magic systems or power systems, ability systems, I think is my favorite term for those type of things instead. In a way. So I'm hyped. I'm hyped to continue this show. I can't even pretend. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next. How they're going to be able to continue to mold the MCU into this, but in a completely new like mind frame, because that's really what we're seeing from everyone, and like from every direction, is these different takes on what we've already seen, and people are losing their absolute shit over it at times because it's like multiverse bad and all these other things. But regardless, like I said, like just having these first three episodes kind of set the tone of what's going on with the rest of the show, has my hype level for what's going to be popping next is just, it's just gone up through the roof. I cannot lie. Like, the hype level is definitely through the roof. So those are some of my thoughts. Those are some of my thoughts. Some of my theories. Okay, I'll get into some of my theories in just a second. Yo, what's up with it? How you doing, my guy Matt? I hope you're enjoying this series for real, because it has been a good one so far. I'm not even gonna pretend. I have really, really been enjoying your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I really am glad I started watching this series. Yo, I'm happy you've been enjoying it, man. We do our watch parties. Uh, what is it? Tuesday night. Tuesday night, starting at 11 p.m. PST. And then we go into that. We go into the watch party starting at midnight PST. So that's gonna be a good. That's gonna be a good old time. That's gonna be a good old time indeed. It is really cool. I agree. I agree. Also, with regards to Carla Connors, I am the Lizard Queen. Oh yeah, she's definitely like the takes on the characters. Everything so far has been right up. Like it's just been right up the alley. I have really enjoyed it. I don't have any arguments for it. Like I think they've just been doing a really good job of honing in on the things that we kind of already wanted to happen and really capitalizing on them in more ways than one, Like, that's one thing that I was kind of talking about with someone is the fact that I really appreciate how we can get these different takes. We can could like see these different characters but still have a kind of have a similar outlook on them though. Like the characters have the same framework, but it's just the building that we have at the end is completely different. They have the same blueprint, but it's all the framework that's actually different. I think that's how it goes. I can't. I think the outside, visually, what you see, I think is the frame. Well, no, that's the framework. The structure of the building is the same, but visually it looks different. I guess that's the best thing that I could say. And I agree with that. I mean I agree with it, but that's just how I see it. See, especially when everything is through a multiversal lens in the first place. So it's like, yeah, obviously it's not going to be the same exact thing that we know it to be because it's multiversal. And then as we know of how the multiverse, like as I look at the multiverse, the farther away it is from certain other events, the more different it can become. So this universe is not closer to the comics. It's not just closer to the comics, it's also closer to the MCU. So in this pocket dimension where we have it, it's in a shared universe of comic and MCU to where it's a blend of both and we get the best of the two worlds with the like with all due respect. I think like I even enjoyed seeing some of the stuff a little bit better, like a little bit more like in here seeing him really go through the neighborhood and talk to people and be friendly to those that he was talking to. Really care about even the criminals that he's fighting. Like I think all of that goes a really, really long way. So I'm excited to see how those things continue to change and I guess even manifest. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm excited. I like seeing different versions of these characters too. Like Doctor Strange looks much more mellow than the MCU one. Yeah, 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 yeah. He is more mellow, but at the same time, it's very. He gives you that similar vibe though of MCU Strange. And I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how. Yeah, I love it. I'm not gonna lie to you. The fight between Strange and the Venom symbiote was epic. I agree, Matt. Like that shit was awesome. The way they like they were going through the. Bruh, yes, they did a wonderful job with that first episode, giving us everything, letting us see that badass fight, introducing the multiverse, possibly introducing how we got to see that origin story, seeing that there's other characters and things are existing within this universe actively. Do even seeding the possibility of it being a multiverse without right out telling us, right? Like Peter had no idea who Doctor Strange was, but he knew Iron Man, Captain America's taking pictures with Norman Osborn, and like heroes are obviously known to a certain extent. So the fact that Doctor Strange isn't known kind of leads us to believe that maybe he isn't from that universe. So that's another multiversal spider that is being introduced into the fray. Crazy as well, right? Like, so that's two multiversal spiders that have been introduced to an origin story, which is wild. I love how they showed Peter's origin and made it interesting. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I agree. They made it very interesting. I love the way that we got to see him actually get bit it be completely different, be completely left field, and then have that also tie into the way that he gets introduced to Norman Osborn in a similar way he got introduced to Tony Stark. I mean, the scenes beat by beat were damn near the exact same, you know? And I love that. I know why they skipped it in the MCU reintroduction, and I respect that, but they were slick with that one. Yes, I agree. They were very slick with this. They did it. That is a very good point. They were very sly in the way that they let this go by. You know, like they were like, okay, we're just gonna we're gonna give you a adjacent universe, so you're gonna be able to follow along if you've seen the MCU. If you haven't seen the MCU, you're gonna be able to follow along if you know Spider-Man. If you don't know Spider-Man, then this is just gonna be your first introduction. Like I feel like they have hit everything with these first three episodes. Like each episode had something different for each one of the people that I was just mentioning, and I do believe that if they continue on this trajectory, that this show could end up on a really high note and can be a banger, possibly even introducing us to more multiverse stuff in the show, maybe even giving us some more glossary words, and all these different things. I think it's really possible. I do. Ooh. This interpretation of Norman is pretty solid. They have literally no chill in having them know their identities right off the bat. Yes, like they are who they are. Like I don't think they've done anything to make us think that Norman Osborn is a good guy. Even Peter thought he was a threat when he first saw him. Like the music, the mood, the tone, everything changed as soon as he realized it was Norman Osborn. Same goes with his friend. As soon as she heard that he was going to be working for Oscorp, she was like, wow, so you sold out your soul to the devil. Like they really are letting us know what the hype is, what the tone is, and actually giving the exact opposite vibe of what everyone thinks about Tony Stark, right? It only took us we knew Tony Stark was flawed, but until Spider-Man, what was that? Spider-Man Far From Home, that's when they really showed us how Tony is like a villain to some of the people, but not to the majority. And for this guy, it's probably the exact opposite, to where he is a villain to the majority, but to the minority, they see him as a good guy. Which I think leaves a lot on the table as far as storytelling, world building, and especially if they want to continue this show past the season one, the narrative that they can weave is going to be insane. Like, hands down, it's going to be wild. So, I freaking love these first three episodes. I thought they did a fantastic job. Not seeing Peter get bullied as well was a really good aspect that I didn't expect to see here. But they did it. They've done all the things that I needed them to do. So continue to let me know all your thoughts, theories, and questions in the comment section down below. We're about to get into the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episode 1 and 2 breakdown done by New Rockstars. We're going to be doing we're going to be watching it. I guess it's a watch party for the New Rockstars breakdown. So we're going to be checking that out here shortly. But we will but first, let me tell you about some of the things that are going to be going on, and then we'll be right back, right? So, going on this week, we have a lot of things on board, and I am so excited to be able to share all these things with you. I am not gonna lie. So today, obviously, we're doing our Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man review. Tomorrow morning, the Fantastic Four trailer is going to be dropping. They're doing a launch reaction. They're doing something on Good Morning America. I don't know exactly what it is or what it's called, but tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, they're going to be having something on Good Morning America revolving around the Fantastic Four trailer. So you know what that means? Bright and early tomorrow, we will be here waiting to check it out, waiting to react to it, and waiting to get that video out. Okay? So tomorrow morning, you guys be here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed so you can also join in on our first trailer that we're going to be getting for Fantastic Four, okay? And I've already heard some things from Mike Beasley about what we might see in it, and it sounds like it's going to be amazing. They also dropped a little teaser today for Fantastic Four, the first steps. that looked really nice. It gave us that retro old school vibe that we've been looking for, and I just really appreciated it. Going on tomorrow at 11 p.m. PST, we're going to be doing the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episodes 3 through 5 watch party and review. So yeah, tomorrow we get 3 episodes as opposed to the only 2 episodes that we've been getting. So I'm really excited to get into those 3 episodes. I think it's going to be insane. We probably are going to see one of those new Spider-Man suits, maybe even see a little bit of Daredevil here and there. So that's going to be a complete vibe, and I hope all of you guys tune in for that as well. Going on Wednesday, man, we are going to be doing our From Watcher to Reader Season 3, Episode 3 review for chapters 26 through 37. So we've been doing book club around here. It's been going really well. So Wednesday, you guys can definitely tune in when we do that. Now, after that on Wednesday, later that night, it's going to be our Invincible premiere watch party. So season 3 of Invincible drops Wednesday night at 12 midnight. So technically Thursday at midnight, but here we do things an hour early. So we will be here at 11 p.m. PST on Wednesday night to get ready for that Invincible first 3 episode premiere that's going to be occurring in that same night. And then the next day, after we do that watch party, we'll go to sleep, wake up, and then we'll be doing our review like we're doing right now for those next episodes. So it's going to be a good time. All these things are on the table for what we got going on this week. So I definitely hope you guys can be there. I definitely hope to see you for those watch parties. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the latest news, movie reviews, and things that we do like that all the time. Okay, so I'll be right back, and then we will dive into our watch party of the new Rockstars breakdown for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video because it helps out tremendously around these parts. All right, let's get into it. Okay, let's get into uh our watch party portion of the new Rockstars breakdown for this show. Let's make it happen.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemens, and this is our breakdown of the first 2 episodes of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that premiered on Disney+. A 2-episode premiere! Marvel Studios' first Spider-Man show created by Craig of the Creek's Jeff Trammell, aesthetically inspired by the 60s Steve Ditko Spider-Man. The series is just
I had
super
no
fun.
idea.
It has a lot of ground to cover and introduce a lot of characters from the comics. So let's go through the first 2 episodes scene by scene to look at all the details and Easter eggs you might have missed. But first, of course, make sure to check out the latest and greatest at nerdride.shop, where you can find everything that you need for your little nerdy hearts. While we're on the subject right now, we have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man gear. If you want to get some shirts of his little homemade outfit, you can go get that out. If you want some adjacent Spider-Man gear, check out the Daredevil Born Again merch. We're back in Queens. We're back in Hell's Kitchen. If you're in New York, you need this merch. If you're on the East Coast, you need this merch. If you're on the West Coast, you can get this merch. Anyone can get this merch. Go check out nerdride.shop. It's the greatest way to support the channel and also just, look fly as hell while doing it. All right, now let's get into it. Episode 1 is titled Amazing Fantasy. Amazing Fantasy, once titled Amazing Adult Fantasy, is a series of comics written by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and acted like a fantasy anthology series that also debuted Peter Parker's Spider-Man in the Amazing Fantasy number 15 that released in 1962. We open in Queens, and this right here might be the Avengers Tower in the distance. It has the same lip for the landing pad. As we know, the Avengers are in this universe, or this reality, and we'll get into it in a little bit. Peter wakes up to Aunt May yelling for him, and on his face is Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's 1962's Amazing Adult Fantasy.
I didn't even notice
specifically Beware of the Giants, a story about a young boy wandering too far from home and running into scary giants. On Peter's nightstand, he has a book on grammar and presidents, but he's also currently reading White Fang. White Fang by Jack London is about a wolf dog's journey in the Yukon and Northwest Territories during the 1890s Klondike Gold Rush, but mainly it's from the dog's perspective. It's a lot more than that, but I tend not to relate to books that are frequently on high school required reading lists. Why? Because I simply cannot read. It also was adapted into a Disney film starring young Ethan Hawke, if you've seen that. Still, Stan Lee ran Marvel Classic Comics from 1976 to 1978, which were comic adaptations of literary classics like Moby Dick and Jekyll and Hyde. They also ran one for White Fang, which was released in 1978. This Peter is adorable, and I love his extremely cracked phone. He's so effortlessly a teenager. This Peter is voiced by Hudson Thames, who also was the voice of Spider-Man in What If. He runs through the apartment late, and we pass Aunt May, voiced by Carrie Walgren. Later in Aunt May's car, she has a little Iron Man figurine hanging from the mirror. In this universe, we have the Avengers along with Iron Man. We have Captain America, as pictured in the second episode with an Oscorp. However, we learn that we don't have a Strange when Doctor Strange shows up, and Peter questions the magical wizard
that's
guy.
exactly what I was saying.
Interesting because we probably just haven't met Steven yet. We've seen the Civil War battle in the latest featurette, and to confirm if this takes place around then, later we'll see a Bluefin 2 breakdown poster, and it says 2016 at the bottom. Doctor Strange got into his accident early 2016, and by the fall he was meeting the Ancient One, so during Civil War he was kind of MIA until Infinity War. However, as a reminder, this isn't our 616 universe. This Strange, if he exists in this universe, could be continuing being a surgeon. Maybe his sister never died and he's just not a doctor. The possibilities are endless, but at one point after the Sokovia Accords, the story of this reality diverts from the one that we're used to.
If the Sokovia Accords exist at all in this universe, because it seems like they might not.
When Peter and Aunt May talk about the school and Peter's excitement, he says this.
And it'll be nice, to have something to distract from everything else that's been going on.
If you notice, May's ring shimmers right there, and it's not hard to deduce that maybe this is post Uncle Ben's death. A canon event to which the Spider-Verse refers to it, but this is definitely after Uncle Ben dies. We make it to Midtown High. Midtown High, as some may know, has been featured across different Spidey realities for a really long time. It's in the comics, it's in the movies, and now in Marvel Studios' animated show. A green portal opens as Peter steps out of the car, and you know it's Doctor Strange by the fiery sling ring rim, and it looks really good. Outlands a version of Venom
portal inside of it. That's the thing that's so different. Is it's green on the inside. Like, why is it green on the inside? Every time I see green, really I'm like,
Outlands a version of Venom, one with claws and horns, with a hairy mane or maybe a hairy back. He kind of looks like Kraven's figure or Sabretooth. Jeff Trammell mentioned in the Marvel podcast they wanted to take different takes on classic characters. This is why I think they created a what if version where Doctor Strange hunts Venom, maybe for sport, or in his reality, it's just similar to Jumanji. We're saved by Doctor Strange, voiced by Robin Atkin Downs, and when Strange arrives, we get the Doctor Strange theme music composed by the king himself, Michael Giacchino.
Where do you think you're going?
While everyone is distracted by the fight, as you would be too,
Crazy.
a little web falls from the portal, a web with a spider. Up until now, we've seen so many Spidey origins, or at least you know where they're coming from. It's a boy from New York City, highly intelligent, gets bit by a spider. At this moment, each Spider-Man diverts from the standard narrative. So Andrew Garfield is bit on a field trip, right? Miles Morales underground by the wrong spider, and now this magical spider that has traveled through Strange's portal has bit this Spider-Man. They all have similar journeys, but different paths. Peter helps save the day, then saving Nico Minoru, voiced by Grace Song. And Nico, you may remember from The Runaways. Her first appearance was actually in Runaways issue number 1, created by Brian K. Vaughan and Adrian Alfona. This shot then cuts to a split screen and separates for a close-up of the spider on Peter's neck, and this is truly what they wanted, a moving comic book. A comic book brought to life. This Spider-Man disappears into his backpack, picked up by someone else. And Peter, get up! Get that backpack back! You know that scene is gonna play out later in the future. Who got that spider? Then we get this awesome intro that I know the team behind the scenes is just so proud of. The song played is Neighbor Like Me, which is performed by the Math Club and included the classic theme song from the 1960 Spider-Man series. And what a great little, I just love it.
You probably know how tall you are. You probably know your shoe size,
Yo, that
your
was
weight,
crazy.
and a whole bunch of other numbers you need
I was
from time
not
to time.
ready
But
for
what's
Brett to
your
pop
credit
up.
score? Do you know it? If so, are you happy with it? Your credit impacts everything.
Spiders on it, the art transition
Description to get the offer.
We twist through the frames of the double helix with spiders on it. The art transitions through its own genre as Peter's DNA alters with the rhythm. Our boy has his own comic book, The Origin of Spider-Man, and the art follows his debut in Amazing Fantasy. The first page offers this black silhouette of Spider-Man and his web on the yellow backdrop. We see him then making his web shooters, so these ones aren't like organic webs like Tobey Maguire's. They don't come out of his butt. Next to that cell is Crusher Hogan. He'll appear later in episode 2 in a really small cameo, but he's also appeared as an Easter egg in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's also featured in the Spider-Man debut comic I mentioned earlier, and Spider-Man is wearing a similar outfit in that comic as well. We see his homemade suit being prepared. Every Spidey has an infamous Mach 1 suit that's serving real Home Depot realness. The majority of Marvel comics feature a value stamp on the letter page of every title, or more commonly, a corner box that tells you it's a Marvel comic right away. Here we see a lot of versions of Spider-Man's corner boxes, and if not to remind you, this show is a living, breathing comic book itself. From left to right, the first in yellow is cut off from the edge of the screen.
This is what I wanted to see as
original
well.
design for Spider-Man. Then we see our Spidey. Then we get a greened out Spidey, and I assume this is the big time stealth suit that first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 650. The next is a splice between two of the Slingers comic Spidey suits. This issue came out in the 1990s when Black Marvel gave 4 of Peter Parker's costumes to some younger people and named them the Slingers. It's a splice of the Prodigy suit and the Hornet suit. And then I think we see another Slinger comic suit. This is Dusk. This purple one looks like a Zemo Spider-Man.
Yo, what's up with it, Thatcher? How you doing, my brother?
Which specific one it might be, so get at
Hey,
me in the
Sensei,
comments
can't
if you
stay,
know.
unfortunately,
Same
but I had a
gray
great
one.
time
The
with
green
these
or yellow one feels
episodes.
like a
I
version
was
of the
so
stealth
wrong
suit
with
or
my
the
first
Night Monkey suit,
impressions.
and
That's
so does the
usual,
purple
and as
Zemo looking
usual.
suit. This looks like the
Spider-Man
classic
makes me
Ben
love
Reilly
everything.
suit,
Yo,
but the eyes are
Spider-Man's
patterned, but a little
amazing, bro.
modeled
Yeah,
with
the
the
show is
wire spider
awesome.
symbol on the
I'm
back.
happy you
This
enjoyed it.
resembles our
I hope you have a
MCU
good
homemade
night,
spider
bro.
suit, the
Get you
one
some
that
good
Tom Holland
sleep.
made. And I assume
And
most,
I'll
if not
see you
all
on
of these are
Wednesday.
different reality Peters because the cells in the background shows a short hair
If you just check out new Rockstars, bro. New Rockstars, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man.
I think that's a different
New
version.
Rockstars is
Similar to
awesome.
the 60s cartoon intro, we have a similar shot of the Spidey web overlaid on the city's outline. What's also very similar is the Spider-Man show is in color. They made a color scheme of magenta and a lot of cyan, similar to the intro's magenta, yellow, and cyan here. We end with the corner box for our new Spider-Man and its cover, which is so fun, and mirrors Spider-Man's debut comic cover, where he's swinging in the same direction, pose holding someone. So then we jump a few months later, still late, but this time hanging upside down, still reading White Fang as you can see, still bumping into people and now things, and still missing the train. Later we meet the coach, and it's credited as Coach Grayfield, and Phil Grayfield was a super football player hero from the comics. His story is actually very weird. He knocked over a bunch of like chemicals, and that combined with this indestructible merch turned him into a superhero. He was featured in the NFL Super Pro Special Edition released in 1991. We see the Spidey suit officially, this big clunky web shooters, a hockey jersey, and joggers. The drip is very, honestly, immaculate. And I tried to kind of do it today, so I'm gonna stand up to let you see it. Well, this is my version of the hockey jersey, and I'm wearing orange joggers.
bruh.
Honestly, I love that outfit choice. It's very cartoony, but it really is a good look if you actually think about it. Spider-Man promptly finds himself in a battle with 3 bullies. One of the bullies is named Stevie Sherman, and Steve Sherman was a longtime assistant to Jack Kirby, who unfortunately passed away not long ago in 2021 at 72. As he streams on the phone, we see names for Jay Wilcox, Hot Dogger, and Hippie Hamster. Jay Wilcox could be the colorist for Marvel, John Wilcox, who worked on some Spider-Man issues. I also like how they recognize him as the newest Avenger, Trash Man. Later, we'll see additional names like the Omega Toaster, who says, "Kick his ass, Seabass," a line from Dumb and Dumber. There's also a comment shamelessly plugging themselves, and it's Screwball, the world's first live blogging supervillain. She first appeared in 2008's Amazing Spider-Man and in the video game. There's also Cookie Mane, which I assume is a play off Pokimane and Cookie, who sells her own brand of cookies now, and I haven't seen a single nice review about them since Kai Cenat ate them, so I don't know if they're good. Spider-Man also crazily destroys this bully with a brick. I think he might have killed him. It's insane to do that move. Then after beating up these bullies, we learn it's Harry Osborn, voiced by Zeno Robinson. He does the voice of Hux in My Hero Academia. We're then at Rockford Bales High School. Peter's sneaking into class, and this teacher right here is Miss Eberhardt, named after Dana Vasquez Eberhardt, the VP of animation at Marvel. We see Peter has a crush, and her name is Pearl, and she's voiced by Kathy Ang. She's Marvel's comics' first Filipina superhero, and in the comics, this is Wave. She can control water. She debuted in 2019's War of the Realms, New Agents of Atlas #1. In the comics, before she gets her power, she's actually a competitive swimmer, and in the series, she's also a competitive swimmer. Lincoln reminds her to have fun at practice and to remember her goggles later in the episode. Immediately, I clocked him, and I know the internet did too now. We get that Cherry. You know this actor that Shang-Chi on the bus.
I said it immediately. I was like, yo, it's doing Flip Guy.
You remember, he's the one that says, "Don't flip!" They're trying to stop the car before it slams into the bus, and the driver actually looks like Your Friendly Neighborhood's director, Mel Zywer. I don't know if this is true or not, but it does look a little similar. And it wouldn't surprise me because all of these extra characters in the show have so much character, they're probably based off people that work behind the scenes. Pearl ended up with Lonnie Lincoln, captain of the football team. Lonnie Lincoln is also the name of Tombstone, another classic Spidey villain from the comics. We've seen him in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. He's one of Kingpin's goons. Also, please, don't kill Lonnie and don't make him a bad character. He's so sweet. We watch Lincoln go home, and okay, this old lady is
about to
offensive.
see
She can get
him.
lost. This is where the neighborhood from the title comes into play. Spider-Man is as important as his neighborhood. He's nothing without his community. That's the whole thing. Wonderbaum mentioned this on the Marvel podcast and added Jeff Trammell, the show creator, who also created Craig of the Creek, a show that features so many extra characters. It's essential to have different perspectives and reflections of what makes Spider-Man's neighborhood, and we're seeing it here with where Lincoln comes from.
That's lit,
He comes from a rougher part, which aligns with Tombstone and the comics, so this might be Harlem. On the table at Lonnie's home is a newspaper for the Daily Bugle, and I like that they still keep the trumpet logo. The Daily Bugle is a fictional newspaper we see in Spider-Man all the time. It's also where Spidey sometimes works. Spider returns money to the pizza store owner after someone stole it from the register, and this man
is a great
the pizza
moment.
shop owner is OG Banks, who is also the voice of Luke Cage in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Let's
He plays
go.
Luke Cage across a lot of actual Marvel properties. After dumpster diving into some new electronics, Alt J's Left Hand Free begins playing. I haven't heard a song in so long. And when Peter gets home, Aunt May is talking with none other than Norman Osborn, voiced by Coleman Domingo, and the swagger on this character is immaculate. The sequence is how Tom Holland's Peter Parker was first introduced in Civil War, too. The outro gives us more snippets of Peter's comics in the show, what might be different styles from Peter's designs. We get different angles of Norman Osborn, different angles of Doctor Strange, Harry, Aunt May, and Lincoln. Then we end with our family neighborhood Spider-Man logo. Episode 2 is titled The Parker Luck. Now seen as Peter Parker's actually
I really like that. I really like that first episode. I'm not gonna lie. That first episode was great. This is a great review right now. Make sure you guys drop a like on the stream because it definitely helps out tremendously. And don't forget, you guys, drop all your thoughts, theories, and questions that you might have for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Episode 2 is titled The Parker Luck. Now seen as Peter Parker is actually pretty unlucky in the comics, they refer to his series of unfortunate events as the Parker Luck. This often refers to all the tragedies Peter suffers due to being Spider-Man. And we get the new Spider-Man cover for this episode with Oscorp in the background.
That's fire. Okay, hold on. I absolutely love
being Spider-Man. And we get the new Spider-Man cover for this episode with
I absolutely love this, and I wish that more comic book based animations would do something like this for their episodes. I mean, I think it's just a clear thing that should be done for anything that's a comic book. Like, give us a comic book panel at some point.
Oscorp in the background. After meeting Norman face to face, he looks at Peter's Certificate of Excellence. This recognition is proudly presented to Peter Parker for achievements in science and math, awarded from Stark Junior Science Fair on May 22nd, 2014. As we saw in the last episode with the car ornament, Tony is an inspiration to Peter, and he has an award from Tony's Junior Science Fair signed by Hannah Morales.
Agree that goes hard? Bro, it goes stupid.
The event coordinator's last name, Morales, makes us think of, Miles Morales.
I need that for Invincible.
We've seen Morales with the name Hannah before, and in the comics and in the Spider-Verse movies, Miles' mom is known as Rio. Nico mentions how shady Norman Osborn is later and says you'll find his bunker full of gold and plutonium. If you remember in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that's what the Rhino hijacked from Oscorp in the beginning. Then Nico mentions Roxxon. This energy company has been involved in shady things in the Marvel Universe since the 70s when they first appeared in a Captain America comic. Their name is based on Exxon, which the comic writer says is part of Marvel's policy of referencing the real world, but one step removed. Once at Oscorp, this guard's name is Jay Gallo, who in the comics is Johnny Gallo, aka Ricochet. He's a mutant with the super strong legs who can jump off walls or ricochet about. The Ricochet identity was actually first created by Peter Parker at a time when Spider-Man was wanted for murder. This is the comic I referenced when breaking down the intro. These are the Slingers. To keep acting as a superhero, Peter made up the costumed identities and masqueraded as all of them. They were Prodigy, Ricochet, Dusk, and Hornet. Then later the costumes were given to 4 new heroes who formed the superhero team, the Slingers, and Gallo was part of that team. His popped collar
that's actually so lit. I didn't know that at all. Yeah, yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. That is a crazy deep cut.
He tortured a group of young superpowered people, expanding their powers and studying them. Jean, however, was the only one who agreed to work for Norman Osborn. After Osborn lost his power, they were tutored by the Avengers and formed the Avengers Academy. In the comics, she was super intelligent, so it makes sense she's a scientist here, and like Taskmaster, she was able to replicate any physical act after only seeing it once. Then we meet the rest. Asha from Wakanda. She had a small appearance in the comics where she was part of the Wakandan School of Alternative Studies, Wakanda's metahuman school. She has the power to manipulate light and can turn invisible or blind opponents. She wears beads, which might be the technologically advanced Kimoyo beads we've seen in the MCU. Amadeus from the Lower East Side. In the comics, Amadeus Cho replaces Banner as the Hulk and loved his powers. He was also able to keep his intelligence in his Hulk form, and generally speaking, had a lot more fun with it than Banner did. Like Asha and Jean, he's also pretty smart, so it makes sense why he's here. He's also the son of Helen Cho in the comics, who we met in Age of Ultron. We meet Dr. Whitman, voiced by Paul Tompkins, aka Mr. Peanut Butter. This is actually Bentley Whitman, aka the Wizard. In the comics, he has no superpowers, but is a strange magician and genius who creates gadgets that simulate powers. Whitman sarcastically also calls Peter Hawkeye, so he's likely established at this point in the universe as well. Carla Connors then shows up, and she chooses to work with Peter in the Energy Research Division. As you can see, she's missing an arm, so Carla is primed to become this universe's version of the Lizard. There might be a hint at this where we see a terrarium in the back. It might be the habitat for a lizard. They're working on a sustaining battery of sorts, similar to the Stark arc reactor, which is the tech Stark uses to power the Iron Man suit. Later, when they're watching TV, we see a cameo by Crusher Hogan. As I mentioned, he appeared in the 1960s when Peter wrestled him for cash as a fledgling Spider-Man. We also see Harry Osborn at an event featuring and likely one of Time's 100 most influential people list, and then we see a fire has broken out. Later, the subtitles call this man Butane. He was an incredibly minor villain from the comics. I love how he just volunteers exactly why he's here. I think that's a villain thing to do, but also a very stupid thing to do. And I wonder who the developers could be. Roxxon, perhaps?
Definitely Oscorp. What? Definitely
Oscorp. Crystal
Oscorp.
Gage, drawn by Eric Gaster, that ties in with the show and shows you some in-between moments. There's a first issue and a second issue, which I think you can get right now. The first issue featured Don Silvio Manfredi, aka Silvermane, who has been setting buildings on fire to get the land, so he might be appearing later in the show and revealed as the arson hirer.
Amadeus and Helen are in the Avenger video game?
Inside, Osborn
the
has
one with
photos of
Kamala
himself and
Khan?
Captain America because he's classy.
I never beat
I also
that
like how
game.
you see Peter's phone crack even more, which is probably due to him being Spider-Man now. This is also when it's revealed that Norman knows Peter as Spider-Man, and oh no, how does he know that? Because you changed in a stairwell where there's cameras. Peter, so dumb. And then we close with the end credits, and this
I thought the
2-episode
same
premiere
thing.
was great. I think this Spider-Man series is ramping up to genuinely be really fun, and I'm having a great time watching and can't wait to keep breaking them down here with my best friend and hero, Noah Chen. Follow me at Lulu_Clement. Subscribe to all 3 channels in the new Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Make sure to check out the break room.
W for sure. I loved the episode. I'm not gonna lie to you. I loved the episode. Episode was a banger.
Hello, Peter. It's nice to meet you.
Now we're gonna go to this dude.
So, you're Spider-Man.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man
Let's
episode
go.
1 and episode 2 video. There's a bunch going on, so many Easter eggs and references for the classic comics, and a bunch of big changes too. So I know that's probably one of the biggest questions is why does it look so different? Is this set in the MCU? Is it set in another universe? It is set in another universe. Also that they can play on a lot of classic tropes, both from the MCU, like a lot of Captain America Civil War going on here too, with a lot of twists, like it's Norman Osborn becoming his mentor instead of Iron Man. I'll be doing videos every week, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. It has been so long since I've been on camera this much, I'm going to have to go out and buy a whole bunch more Spider-Man shirts for all these episodes. And probably one of the most notable things is they've already renewed the show for Season 3. They said that they're in the middle of animating Season 2, so it sounds like they're going to release Seasons 1 per year. Really hope that they had actually done that for X-Men 97. Like, we're going to have to wait till 2026 for Season 2. But the title of Episode 1 is Amazing Fantasy, obviously a reference to Spider-Man's first appearance in the comics, Amazing Fantasy number 15. They've been using that scene of him saving Harry from the bullies as a comp to the cover of that issue too, and it shows up in the newspaper at the end of the episode. They start with a very Saturday morning cartoon-sounding version of the Marvel Studios fanfare because this is an animated series and it's a Marvel Animation logo. And in the background of the logo, instead of the live-action stuff, it shows different scenes from all the animated series going all the way back to the classic 1960s Spider-Man series. There's a bunch of What If, a bunch of X-Men 97 in the background, even some scenes from the Silver Surfer TV show back in the 90s. Fun fact too, all those 90s shows are specifically canon to the
I have to
X-Men
run this time
97
for
universe
real?
because that's sort of like a 1990s
I have a good one, G.
Marvel universe. But they started the episode with a view of Manhattan and the Avengers Tower from the perspective of Queens, because that's the borough of New York City that Spider-Man lives in. They also use the same font that the Russos used during Captain America Civil War, because this is happening about 6 months before Civil War in the MCU, just like the MCU Spider-Man origin story. They never actually bothered to show us the spider bite of Tom Holland's Spider-Man or his origin story. They sort of brush past it and sort of allude to it in a lot of the later movies. But essentially, this series started life being the freshman year of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but they decided to change it so that they could use whatever characters they wanted and do a lot more classic stuff from the comics with big twists. Really good example of that, probably the best example, is the fact that Norman Osborn is here with Harry instead of him being in the MCU, which didn't happen until much later during Spider-Man No Way Home with a much bigger multiverse twist. So if it wasn't clear, this should be pretty obvious. This is set in a completely separate universe, meaning that the X-Men can exist in this universe already. The Fantastic Four can show up. There's some Fantastic Four Easter eggs during the episodes too, making me think that they do exist somewhere on this Earth. But notice the Avengers Tower looks like it did circa Avengers Age of Ultron, because even though this takes place in an alternate timeline, it's set around the same time period of Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man got his spider bite, and during Spider-Man Homecoming, the Avengers Tower had just been sold to, as we find out in the Thunderbolts trailer, Val. Spider-Man wakes up having fallen asleep reading the Amazing Fantasy comic book.
The CIA.
The cover, obviously a big Easter egg too, is from the real life issue number 14, one right before he debuted as Spider-Man, because today is literally the day that he gets the spider bite. It does take a little getting used to the way they animated the series. I still think that the X-Men 97 animation is some of the best animation that Marvel has done thus far in the Disney Plus era of Marvel stuff. But the way they explained it, in general, they wanted the series to feel like a Steve Ditko drawn Spider-Man comic come to life.
It does.
So all the character models are meant to look more like classic Steve Ditko era. And during the end credits, it gets a little bit more literal too. They literally animate comic book pages into the actual end credits. We find out that Uncle Ben has already died here, still wondering what happened to MCU Uncle Ben too, but I think the idea is that a lot of his origin story here is meant to be mostly the same as Spider-Man in the MCU, with a couple twists, like for instance Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn. Also the whole twist with how he actually gets the spider bite, we will get to that in a second. Notice in her car, they have an Iron Man hood ornament, Iron Man selling merch based on himself, which sounds about right. If somebody in the Marvel Universe is going to be earning money based on your likeness, it might as well be you. And I'm not totally sure, but usually when you see a license plate inside a Marvel anything, doesn't matter where it shows up, it's usually a comic book Easter egg, but there's also a Fortnite Spider-Man map with that exact number where Spider-Man saves the city, so it could also be a reference to that. Him wanting to
okay.
play with robots at Midtown High is meant
It
to
definitely is a
foreshadow his
reference to that.
internship at Oscorp because he wants to make it to the robotics lab. I think it's also a lot of foreshadowing for Norman Osborn's Green Goblin tech too. Like there's a lot of Oscorp tech just that permeates the city. We will probably eventually see him running around in an actual Green Goblin suit with a glider. When he mentions having a nice distraction from all the bad stuff recently, that's obviously Uncle Ben's death. They reference him
Rip.
a little bit, but just a little bit. I don't expect to hear a whole lot about him for the rest of the series. But the other obvious big change here too is that Uncle Ben died before Spider-Man got his powers. On his way into the school, Doctor Strange drops through a portal fighting this universe's version of Venom. Notice the green coming out of the portal too, so not really clear where they came from, like where they were fighting before this, but it could be another dimension, like another universe. They don't actually call this Venom during the episode, they just call it a symbiote in the end credits, but it is meant to be a version of a symbiote. We will see what kind of storyline they try to do for Venom just in general over the season. I have not seen anything beyond episode 2. Like, I'm watching the episodes just like everybody else is watching them, a couple per week. We will probably get bigger teasers heading into future seasons. Like, I don't think that they're going to blow through their entire Venom storyline in season 1. Eventually, at some point, Peter has to get that symbiote. But the other big twist here is that during their fight, the spider that bites him also comes from wherever that other universe is, or wherever they just came from. So it's a very Miles Morales, Spider-Man across the Spider-Verse kind of twist,
That's
where
exactly
the
what I
spider
was
that
saying.
bit them come from other universes. A lot of Doctor Strange's spells are the same spells that he uses in the MCU. He calls one the Shield of Seraphim. He uses it in the MCU and in the comics many times. Turns himself into astral form to let the truck pass through him, and he still has the Time Stone because this is set before Avengers Infinity War. Peter saves Nico while Doctor Strange uses his extra arms like he did during Infinity War against Thanos, and then Peter actually gets the spider bite. Most of you will remember Nico from Runaways or from the comics.
just
the showrunner
watching,
said that they almost
Runaways.
used Jessica Jones here instead of Nico as Peter's man in the chair on this series. Jessica Jones in the comics does have history with Peter, but in the MCU version, it's a completely different vibe. We will actually see Netflix Jessica Jones come back in the MCU eventually, probably through Daredevil Born Again in some future season. Maybe they'll reference her too, because all the Netflix stuff is canon to the MCU. Daredevil Born Again is basically like Daredevil Season 4. We will actually be talking about episodes of that pretty soon. I'll be doing episode
Super
videos just
soon.
like I did for the classic Daredevil series. Cannot wait to see Punisher come back and just wreck a whole bunch of people. On the show, though, I don't know if Nico already has powers or she will get powers eventually. It might just be a secret that she keeps too, where first it's all about her learning Peter's secret, like, oh, you're Spider-Man, you're the person that's doing all this, that's why you're sneaking around all the time. But at some point, she'll probably also get powers too, because why would you do Nico if you weren't going to give her powers? One of the other important details too is that the spider that bit him does not die, crawls into someone else's backpack at school, and that's the last you see of it, but it's probably not the last we will see of it on the TV show, like the spider will be important in some future episode. Kind of wondering what they're going to use that for in the future.
I gotta
Will it
go back
bite
and
other
rewatch.
people and give them Spider-Man powers too. Then they play the regular intro theme song for the show. It's called Neighbor Like Me, as in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is the name of the show, but it's also the name from the comics, too. Most of you probably remember the theme song is a remix version of the classic 1960s animated Spider-Man theme song.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can.
During the intro, though, they basically do a speed run of his first couple months as Spider-Man because there's a time jump after the opening credits. So you're basically watching what happens to him right after this for the next couple months, where he slowly figures his powers out, builds his mechanical web shooters, and the early versions of his homemade suit. The flipping pages is the comic book effect, but a lot of the panels here are meant to be copies of actual real-life comic book panels. There are a ton of Spider-Man suits from the comic book panels, too. It looks like they're all his proto-versions of him slowly designing different suits, and some of them I know that he's going to be showing up in later in the series, too, just because they've shown up in a bunch of concept art. Most of these are either based on versions that are directly from the comics, or they're very accurate to versions from the comics. He swings out of the panel wearing his first real homemade suit that he lands on in the building that he stops on.
You know
is
what
the
will be
Oscorp Tower,
hard?
which we wind up
If
going
when
to
he
in
gets
episode
a
2.
new suit,
All these
it
characters are just
changes
his
the
closest
intro.
friends. And because of the way
That
the
would
spider
be
bite went down in a
crazy
very
fire.
different way, like that's the point of divergence where like his timeline goes in a vastly different direction than MCU Spider-Man. So instead of meeting Ned Leeds and MJ, he winds up meeting Nico. They become best friends. He meets Harry Osborn and all these other characters too. So his life takes a dramatically different turn than MCU Spider-Man. The way the showrunner explained it is that he does not meet Ned or MJ on this show. Like, for all intents and purposes, they do not exist on this TV show.
That's
Harry's going to
crazy.
become one of his best friends, just like the classic comics. Pearl Panigan is a relatively new comic book character, but she's also his love interest in the comics. We will see what happens with the two of them in the future, because Lonnie Lincoln, who also becomes one of his best friends, is also Tombstone in the comics. They're kind of using him in the
about to be
Flash
wild.
Thompson role on this series, but the big twist being that he actually makes friends with him instead of becoming Peter's bully. There's a lot of foreshadowing in his language, like keeping his options open in the future, like he's hoping to break out of this lifestyle. And then you have Norman Osborn, who seems like he's testing out a lot of his Oscorp tech on a lot of underprivileged youth. So it just seems like at some point, Lonnie Lincoln is going to wind up in some sort of Tombstone arc running afoul of Norman Osborn or some other twist on his origin from the comics. They only feature a couple of his classic comic book villains in this first couple of intros here, like the Scorpion is the first big one. Then we get the time jump to a few months later. He started to get used to his powers, but still doesn't completely understand how everything works yet. Still can't make it to his train on time, but because his powers make him vastly stronger, he can bounce off the car like it's no big deal. Spider-Man doesn't have a true healing factor the way Wolverine or Deadpool do, but he does heal faster than a normal person, just like Captain America heals a little bit faster. You guys can let me know what you think of the web slinging effects on this. There's always a lot of criticism of the live-action MCU web slinging compared to, say, like Andrew Garfield's web slinging. I'm a little more hopeful
I
heading
didn't know
into like,
that.
the next Spider-Man trilogy, like Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6. That'll be one of the things that they really work on because a new director is coming onto the series. But he winds up being late to school again because he stops to help Harry Osborn from some bullies who in this universe seems like more of a social media influencer whose family just already happens to be super rich because his dad is Norman Osborn. Really interesting real life detail here. So the person who's playing Stevie Sherman, this character here, is actually the NPC Miles Morales guy in real life who got cast, I think because of all of his Miles Morales social media posts. So big ups to this guy. That's actually pretty cool. And they're basically trying to live stream them beating up Harry. Notice the chat while this goes down too. There's a bunch of Easter eggs in their chat. There's mentions of the Avengers, which is ironic because
What?
Peter does
That's
become an Avenger
crazy.
inside
I
the
had no
MCU.
idea.
Kicka's ass Seabass is from the Dumb and Dumber movie, so we got some movie fans in chat. Getting beat up by a guy wearing hockey pads is a Batman Dark Knight joke, so getting some DC jokes here, but I don't think that makes Batman canon to this universe. Screwball is also a big Easter egg too. She's a villain from the comics who also live streams her crimes, which is something that people do in real life, just like these bullies here. People do that all the time. It's ridiculous. Why would you live stream your
that's true.
crimes if you weren't a psychopath? Then we find out that all the kids at Midtown High started going to a different high school because of the Doctor Strange Venom fight just destroyed most of the school. So now they're all going to Rockford T. Bales. We get a little more Uncle Ben history. He and May would go on dates and have Pearl Panigan babysit Peter when he was younger. In class later, he also draws his blue and red original suit from the
With the
comics,
wings
which
and
he'll probably
everything,
eventually
yeah.
make for himself at some point in the series. Maybe like the very last episode, there'll be like a teaser for that. Maybe the beginning of season 2. There's like a billion suits that they feature in that intro. He's probably going to be
For real.
wearing most of them throughout the series. The actual very first suit in Amazing Fantasy 15 was more black and red. The Spider-Man Far From Home suit that he made for himself that they call the Advanced suit, that was meant to be an Easter egg for that original Steve Ditko red and black suit. When people typically think of the classic Spider-Man original suit, they're talking about the blue and red suit, and that didn't come till a little bit later when Amazing Spider-Man #1 happened. He sneaks out of class again to stop the robbers. Nico also clocks him in a lot of the end credits. Like, you always see her looking at him, sneaking out of class. Eventually, she will figure out what he's doing. Like, oh, you're Spider-Man. This is why you're always late for everything.
Exactly.
Basically the same way that Ned Leeds in the MCU accidentally found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Some of you probably spotted this Easter egg too. When he's swinging around, he passes by Kleb from Spider-Man Homecoming, who also had a cameo in the Shang-Chi movie. They pass a bus ad for
W.
Blue
Cleb.
Gun Breakdown 2, which seems like a reference to Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe that's just because the showrunner is a big fan of that game. And the whole idea with this car save, the bus save, is it's meant to be the exact same video that Iron Man showed him during Captain America Civil War, but in animated form. Like I said, this is basically meant to proceed mostly like the MCU Spider-Man origin story with a couple big twists. So a lot of these scenes are based on Captain America Civil War scenes. Lonnie then picks Peter as his lab partner because he so aggressively wants to get out of the place where he's living right now, like the poor lifestyle, like he wants to have a really bright future, so he actually does want to work really hard. Basically causing Peter to do a complete 180 on him. Like, he used to hate the guy because he took his crush from him, but now suddenly he's like his best friend. My assumption is that they're also building towards some big event where eventually he does turn into Tombstone and Spider-Man is forced to take him down, and that'll be the big conflict between them. Like, you're my friend, I can't take you down, but you're also doing a lot of really terrible stuff. Sort of like a Captain America and Bucky situation where like Bucky was still in full Winter Soldier mode until Captain America helped him. That was what I think was going on when all this talk of Lonnie saying, I want to have options for my future. I think one of those options is going to be him turning into Tombstone, whether he wants to or not.
Yeah, I can see that.
Pearl not to forget her goggles. That means she's on the swim team at school, but also she becomes the Wave character in the comics. We will see if that happens on the TV show. You have to remember this is based on a lot of classic Spider-Man comics and modern comics, so about 90% of the characters that show up in the episodes also have some sort of alternate identity in the comics as either a supervillain or superhero. We get a little more backstory on Lonnie's history. When he goes home, he gets profiled by a police officer a little bit, and then we find out that his family is just super poor, and that's one of the reasons why he wants to be such a success with his future. You also notice there's a copy of the Daily Bugle on their table with Peter on the front cover saving Harry, that pose from Amazing Fantasy number 15. Peter winds up helping the shop owner capture and then release the thief, trying to show some mercy. That'll also probably help him in the future too, where like he pays it forward and then other people wind up helping him in return. Giving him the free pizza, I think, is also meant to be a Pizza Time reference too, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man pizza references. When he finds the DVD player to take home, this is meant to be basically the events of Captain America Civil War right before we saw Spider-Man show up on screen, because the whole rest of this scene, when he walks in, the music that they play, the music track, is the same music track that they play during Captain America Civil War. The only difference in this scene here is that it's Norman Osborn instead of Iron Man. If you couldn't tell, Norman Osborn is being played by Coleman Domingo, who a lot of people actually thought might become the new recast version of Kang the Conqueror during Avengers Doomsday. We will see if that winds up happening. But he did say that he was talking to Marvel about doing live-action characters, not Norman Osborn, but like other live-action characters. There's actually a pretty good chance we'll eventually see Willem Dafoe come back as Green Goblin at some point in the MCU. Like I said though, during the end credits, they have a bunch of comic book panels with artwork from the series made to look like actual comic book artwork, just like Steve Ditko's designs, but much closer to Steve Ditko's designs, like actual comic book animation. Episode 2 then is called The Parker Luck, which is reference to a couple things from the comics. They discussed the Parker Luck many times in the comics. He even had a comic book run that was referred to as Parker Luck. The intro is pretty much the same, but they added Norman Osborn just because they added him in this episode. So like they're adding things slowly to the intros.
Yeah,
and the
bro. And that's going to be crazy.
When he says he's been looking at local high schools for candidates, that also might be for his experiments, because Butane's gear later in the episode also has Oscorp logos all over it. So I think part of the idea is that Norman Osborn isn't looking for candidates out of the goodness of his heart. He's just looking for test subjects, and Spider-Man's potential for power, wanting to exploit him as opposed to Iron Man, is like the next step. Like he wants to get Spider-Man next. So the whole twist here is that the mentor relationship is way darker. Like this will not end well for Spider-Man. You will definitely end up fighting this person while they're wearing Goblin armor. Maybe he goes full Green Goblin by the end of the series. We'll see about that. The whole internship is also meant to be a play on Iron Man's excuse that he gave Aunt May so that she would let him come to the airport battle, basically do a bunch of Avengers stuff with them. Later, though, they eventually did make a fake internship photo shoot to commemorate it, which Iron Man used as a memento of Spider-Man after his death in Infinity War. You notice later, though, Nico has already clocked that Norman Osborn is sus, very correctly, too, like she's right on the money there. All the talk about digging in his backyard, buried skeletons, probably a literal thing in the comics, but also probably foreshadowing for the Sinister Six and like all the crazy villains that we see during the series. Would not be surprised if a lot of them get their tech from Oscorp, because a lot of them are classic Sinister Six villains.
True.
She also mentions Roxxon Oil, which is a natural resources company in the MCU and in the comics. They've been featured on a ton of different TV series and a ton of different movies too. They are very, very evil. When he goes to Oscorp Tower, Gallo J is a reference to John Gallo in the comics, who becomes the Ricochet character. The whole ID badge is also meant to be a comp to Tom Holland's ID badge on his passport that we see a couple times in the MCU. If you're talking about general Spider-Man Easter eggs, though, Spider-Man did try to get an internship at Oscorp inside the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man universe. Gwen Stacy also worked there too. When he goes to the lab upstairs, Amadeus Cho, who's much older than Peter in this universe, seems like he might eventually become the Hulk at some point. I think they just want to leave that as an open possibility, but maybe not this season. Asha is a character from the comics. She's from Wakanda. She does get powers, and she has the ability to absorb light. She can turn invisible. She can shoot laser beams. Jean is actually Taskmaster's daughter in the comics, the original comic book Taskmaster. She also becomes the Finesse character eventually, so we'll see if she eventually gets powers too. Their leader is Bentley Whitman, who becomes the Wizard character in the comics, who's an old Fantastic Four villain, meaning that we might get some more Fantastic Four Easter eggs in future seasons once they debut in the MCU. Usually they try to do stuff in live action before they do it in animation, which is why I don't expect a ton of Fantastic Four characters to be running around this season. He makes a Hawkeye joke because remember, the Avengers are big celebrities inside this universe and in the MCU. Amadeus Cho gets sent to the robotics department. Better build a goblin Hulkbuster, probably going to come in handy later when he turns into the Hulk. Peter winds up working with this universe's version of the Lizard, Carla Connors, who's in energy research, not biotech, and their big mission is to develop a clone of Stark Industries' repulsor technology. I love the way that Peter also calls that out too, like, oh, just like Iron Man's repulsor technology. She's like, yeah, exactly like that. He patented it, so we have to make our own version of it. Basically telling him that Norman Osborn wants to rip off Iron Man with his own version of the tech, which is kind of the way it goes down in the comics too. There are a couple of funny moments with Peter just nerding out big time, like he doesn't know his sports ball because he makes a whole bunch of basketball references when they're asking about the football game. Crusher Hogan here on TV is a reference to Spider-Man's origin story in the comics. We also saw him in live action during Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, played by Randy Savage. He winds up fighting the villain Butane at the fire, who's a total idiot and winds up burning down the wrong building because he's so dumb. When he saves the dog and calls it Spider Dog, Peter does adopt a stray dog in the comics, but he winds up naming that one Sandwich. When he says his next suit needs to be fireproof, pretty much all of his comic book suits are tuned for specific villains based on what their abilities are. When he clocks the Butane got his tech from Oscorp, but doesn't say anything about it yet, that'll probably come back in a future episode when they start working with Norman Osborn on his new suits. Like, by the way, I'm seeing all this Oscorp tech showing up with all these different villains all over the city. Are you connected to that for some reason, Norman Osborn? Pretty easy to assume the answer is probably yes. My assumption when it comes to that kind of stuff, though, is that we won't see any actual Sinister Six form, like for real, until like a future season. They might just tease that later this season. When he summons Peter to his office is because he finally saw evidence of him putting the Spider-Man costume on with the security cams and confronts him with it like, oh, so you are Spider-Man. It's meant to be a comp to Iron Man telling him the same thing with the footage that he found. There are also a couple other Easter eggs too. On the way to his office, he sees the picture that he has with Captain America, and notice it's a newer version of his suit. My assumption is that Oscorp might supply some of the Avengers gear, but probably not all of it, because Iron Man mostly builds all the Avengers gear. Oscorp does have a lot of military, a lot of government contracts though, so they do work a lot with the US government. So the whole idea of this end tag scene here is that Norman Osborn knows his secret and he's not that surprised by it. Like, oh, so it's you. You're the guy. Okay, well, we're going to do a lot of great stuff together. This is also probably right before this scene here where he opens up his wall and shows him all of his secret tech. Like, we're going to do great things together in a really dark connotation. Like, oh, I'm going to have you do all kinds of shady stuff. That'll probably be the beginning of episode 3. But during these end credits, this time they update them with the butane character, but notice Spider-Man's jacket is different in this scene. My guess is this is just concept art that they did early for the series. Then when they finally got to actually animating it, they just changed it so it looked like it did during the actual episode. But if there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted during the episodes that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. What they're actually doing with the show is they're basically binge dropping it in a couple weeks before Daredevil Born Again starts. I think because they don't want this to get in the way of Daredevil Born Again. They just want people to lock in on Daredevil when those episodes start. The really big reminder is that there's 3 episodes next week instead of just 2 episodes, so be sure to watch them all. I'll do a single video for all of them and post that on Wednesday like I would normally do. There are a couple other videos that I'm working on right now too, but everyone click here for that big Wolverine announcement to learn what's happening with him the next couple of years, and click here for my brand new Superman trailer.
W video for show. I had a lovely time with the series premiere of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, man. Let me know how y'all felt about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you love it? Did you not love it? Let me know how all of y'all are feeling. Let me know how we're doing. And then, of course, tomorrow we will be doing our full watch party and review for the next 3 episodes of the show. So, I'm pumped about it, man. I'm not going to lie. I love it. I love the show. I'm loving everything that they're doing. I can't wait to see what these next 3 episodes hold for us. New Spider-Man suit. You know, like a little bit more Norman Osborn lore, some more world building. Give me a little bit of everything, baby. That's what I'm here for. So I can't wait to check it out, and I hope you guys are excited too. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video if you like the video, because it helps out tremendously around these parts. Like I said, we will be doing our watch party and review for this show tomorrow. And this week, we have a bunch of awesome things coming up. So you guys make sure you're ready for all of them. Right now, we're doing our review for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and I think it's been going pretty good. Tomorrow morning, we will be doing our Fantastic Four trailer watch party. That's right. It's dropping at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Will you see me at 4? You might not. It all depends on if I wake up. You feel me? But we will be doing our watch party and review for that trailer. Then my video will be coming out for it as well tomorrow. And then later on tomorrow as well, tomorrow night, we will be doing our full watch party and review for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episodes 3 through 5. So that should be a complete vibe. And of course, on Wednesday, From Watcher to Reader, Season 3, Episode 3. And then later on that day, we'll be doing our watch party and review for Season 3 of Invincible. Invincible has been amazing. The first 2 seasons are awesome. We're not doing no 2 parts. Everything is popping out at one time, baby. So that's going to be a good time. And then the day after that, which would be Friday, you'll be able to tune in with me then again. And while we do another review, just talking about the episode and just discussing how awesome it was and all the things that occurred. So you guys can definitely look forward to all of these things and all of this stuff that will be popping, dropping, and locking. I definitely appreciate each and every one of you guys, of course. It's been a fantastic day indeed today as we've been watching, talking, and yapping about this show. We will be yapping, talking, and yapping about other things going on this week. Make sure that you follow me on social media if you haven't already at Sensei Finito on all platforms to stay up to date with all my thoughts, theories, and opinions on whatever particular thing I may be partaking in at that particular time. And of course, you can also follow us on social media at Marvel Bros to stay up to date with all things Marvel and everything pop culture. We are in the heat of the nerd year right now. Like, the nerd year has started and it will not be stopping. From Daredevil Born Again to Fantastic Four, all these shows and movies that are going to be releasing this year. It's going to be insane. It's going to be awesome. I'm ready, and I hope you guys are ready as well. Definitely drop a subscribe. Definitely hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of the content that we cover and check out here on this channel. We are so close to 300 to 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So definitely can't wait to hit that goal, and we'll be having some awesome things ready for all of you once that happens as well. So again, I appreciate you guys. It's been a fantastic day today indeed, and I hope you guys continue to have a fantastic rest of your day. As I always say, stay awesome, stay nerdy, and don't forget to stay marvelous. Excelsior.